is the theme to the show. The show is all about you. Not you, but you and your stories. Because everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Brought to you by JeffSeltzer.com.
Hello and welcome to Everybody Has a Story with Jeff Seltzer. I am your host, Jeff Seltzer, and I am excited to be here once again. This is going to be a very special and a very different episode too. So in full disclosure and pulling back the curtain a little bit, I did have one episode fully pre-produced and all set to go. And then unfortunately, the guest that I had set up for the week couldn't make it. So fortunately, I had another guest, not just a friend, but a buddy of mine, who stood up right away and said, I'll do it, absolutely. So I'm going to introduce my buddy shortly. You've talked to him before, but I will talk to him in a little bit. In the meantime, I did want to talk about a few things that are really exciting going on in my life. So first of all, it's in the news, it's in the headlines. Obviously, lots going on with Newark Airport. So good old EWR. Over the break, so over the last, let's say, month or 5 weeks, I did have a number of flights that went in and out of Newark, New Jersey. Early in April, I did have a couple of, let's say, flight disturbances. At the time, the reasoning that was given was because of runway issues. So they're doing construction, I think, on Terminal C on the runways around Terminal A. And so some flights were getting delayed. My flight back from Austin was delayed. My flight from Turks and Caicos was delayed like an hour or so. My flight back from Orlando was delayed like 3 hours or so, which then, as I talked about last week, led to one of my many flight issues. What I will say is, and again, pulling back the curtain some more, currently we're sitting here on Wednesday, May 7th. This episode will drop on Monday, May 12th. So obviously this doesn't go live. You get the episode about 5 days after I record it at this point. What I will say is a little nerve-wracking is the fact that this Friday, so on Friday, May 9th, my wife and I are supposed to fly out of Newark Airport. We're flying to Los Angeles. Should be a lot of fun. I'll talk a lot about that, I'm sure, in a future episode. With that said, we have an early flight on Friday morning. However, we've been seeing that a lot of flights are randomly getting canceled. So flying isn't exciting enough for me as it is in terms of playing the game of will Jeff throw up or not. But now I have to play the game of will Jeff's flight actually exist or not. So we'll see what happens. I'm hoping for the best. We'll see. Hopefully, if my flight doesn't happen, hopefully I can get an earlier or later flight. We'll see what happens. But beyond that, again, hopefully Newark Airport fixes their nonsense up. I haven't got my real ID with plenty of time. So in theory, I shouldn't have any issues flying on Friday, as long as the plane is there and as long as, I guess, I don't throw up. But we'll see what happens. With that said, I did want to bring up a story that happened while I was waiting for one of my previous flights to take off because it was delayed by so many hours. So oftentimes sitting in the airport, obviously, if you're there, you're just trying to kill some time. And our flight was delayed by about 3 hours. So with modern technology and social media and phones and whatever else like that, I started thinking to myself, just random things that happened in the past. At 47 years old, there are not a lot of childhood stories that I still remember because as I found, as I get older, I tend to lose some of my earlier memories. A lot of things were going on, obviously with family, with friends, having 2 daughters in high school, stuff like that. There's just so much to remember, so much to think about that as I get older, I don't remember the details of or a lot of things about when I was younger. But there is one story that definitely sticks out that I remember from probably like early middle school or so. So I'm not going to name the 2 people involved just in case they listen, or I think one of them, I think his son might listen also at this point. So I'd rather not name any names just in case, I guess. But long story short, give you a little background. And this also goes a little bit into my guest from today, where he is a huge card collector as well. So in 1988, baseball cards, there was a Topps traded set. So what this basically meant was it was kind of like a mid-year update set where what Topps would do is if there were any like key rookies or any players that were traded during the year, like this was your first opportunity to get those players on cards in their new uniform and in their new like setup. And unlike the normal baseball cards for the late 80s, you couldn't buy packs for these cards. You could only buy the whole set. So it was like 135 or 140 cards in the set. You buy the box and that was it. So in theory, you know, you wouldn't trade cards from the set because, well, then you'd never have the complete set again. And oftentimes back then, the set was worth more than the sum of the parts. So that was that. So that's the background need for the story. So I had two friends. One friend who collected cards, and him and his father together would buy a bunch of cards. So let's call him friend number one. Let's call him the guy who has the card. So friend number one, he bought, or his father bought him, the 1988 Topps Traded baseball card set. Really cool set, lots of really neat cards in it. I think this had the U.S. Olympic players on it. So this is like the first Jim Abbott card, Robin Ventura. For those of you that like baseball, I'm sure it means something. For everybody else, you probably just tuned out or fast forward a little bit, which is fine. In any event, there was one card in there that I don't know why, but for some reason, friend number two was intrigued by. So there was a baseball player named Ron Hassey who played for the New York Yankees and eventually got traded to the Oakland Athletics. So this card was in the set because he got traded mid-year. So somehow friend number two convinced friend number one to trade him that card. I'm not sure if friend number one realized that this means that he would never have the full set. Now, the important thing about this is as soon as he traded that card to friend number two literally in front of him ripped up the card and started laughing because at this point, friend number one could never have that complete set again because, again, you can only buy the full set. You couldn't buy a la carte cards. eBay wasn't a thing. You couldn't buy cards in that format whatsoever. So friend number one, remember, friend number one also shared these cards with his dad. So I think friend number one, once he realized what had happened, was probably mortified, scared, and feeling a lot of different things, and also afraid of his dad, that his dad was going to kill him at this point for now never having the set. Friend number two threw away the card, and that was kind of that. I don't know if friend number one ever told his dad about it, but to this day, I guess, almost 40 years later, if he still collects cards and still has the set, he's still missing one card. Now, being that I have, let's say, a weird collection of sorts, and for me, I'm not a baseball fan at this point, but I do collect some cards that are intriguing, or I guess just more for the story of it, right? For S and giggles, I guess, for the most part. So after I thought about the story, I texted friend number two, the one who had ripped up the card, and he had absolutely no recollection of this ever happening. I mean, when things happen, especially 35, 40 years earlier, different things have different impacts on people. For me, as this feels like the ultimate troll story, like especially at its time and whatever else like that. But again, we were in probably middle school at the time, so he has no recollection of it. So with that said, I texted him about it. He didn't remember it. But as soon as I finished texting him, I went straight to eBay to see, hey, is that Ron Hassey card even available? Like, years later, people have probably broken up their sets, try to sell cards, see what's worth it. Not only was that card available, but I found a PSA 9 graded version of it. So those of you who are watching on the video version see the actual, it's not the card that the guy ripped up, but this is what the card was. So for me, this card is basically worthless to most people. I paid $19 for it, and for PSA 9, that basically shows it's fairly a worthless card. But for me, it's going into my new oddities section of my collection of cards that just kind of like have some kind of like emotional attachment to me. So every time I see that card, I laugh pretty hard because it makes me think about that story from years ago. Many of us have things we collect or things that we think about or things that we do just so that way, it brings us happiness. Some people have, I don't know, like a ring from their grandmother, or some people have, I don't know, a necklace from their sister or their aunt or whatever. Me, I have a stupid baseball card that every time I look at it, it brings me joy. So, it is what it is. It cost me $19 and it made my week. So, whatever. It is what it is. With that said, I'm about to introduce my guest. Before that, I want to remind everybody that our Instagram for this show is Everybody Has a Story Pod. My personal Instagram is @seltzer77. You can reach the show directly via email at everybodyhasastorypod@gmail.com. If you have any business inquiries, want to talk about anything, send me something, whatever else. As always, we are sponsored by my friends over at jeffseltzer.com for all your Jeff Seltzer needs. Please check out jeffseltzer.com. And we are available on all podcast platforms. As a reminder, we are available on Spotify and YouTube and video, audio in those two locations, and everywhere else. With that said, I did want to bring on not just a friend, but a great buddy of mine, Marcus Perkal, also known as Marcus Brandon. So first of all, Marcus, thank you so much for joining me on such short notice. Really appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on.
No problem. Happy to be here. Obviously, as you know, my goal is to be guest more times than Daniel Ireland. And when you group texted both of us asking if either of us were free today, I had to respond as fast as possible. And here we are.
So again, as I said before, thank you so much and I appreciate you coming on. What I will say is obviously this puts you behind Daniel only by one now. So he's got 3, you have 2. But with that said, he doesn't have any one-on-one pods yet. He's only done panel pods so far. So in theory, you have your first one-on-one before he does, because he did a WrestleMania show last year with my buddy Steve. He was on the Live from PWJ show with 16 other people. And then he was on a pod with myself and with you.
Right.
Versus for you, you were on with him, as mentioned, but then also one-on-one with me now. So I'm not sure how we weight these or prorate them or whatever else like that. But, this is definitely a trophy you can hold up that Daniel doesn't have yet.
I just need one more person to bail on you, and I'm gonna have him beat on singles and total. So that's it.
I guess we'll see what happens in a couple of weeks when you and him are scheduled to talk about your week in Vegas. If he bails, you can break his record right there, right?
That would be, yeah. I might have to send him. I don't know, maybe a little poison drink or something, and make sure that happens.
All in good fun. He doesn't really mean it. Marcus is joking.
Definitely not.
If anybody's listening out there, it's just a joke. So I also do want to, before we start talking about anything like real or legit or any kind of questions for you, wanted to once again reiterate that Marcus is the brains behind my new theme song. For those of you that are watching the video version, that is literally what his branding there says, Marcus Perkal, the brain behind Jeff's new theme song, which again, I appreciate. And I think it's it's a banger. Like, it's a bop. I mean, I think last week's show, after you listened to it and watched it, you're like, Jeff, were you really bopping your head with the intro of the theme song going? I was like, absolutely. It's a great song. Why wouldn't I be? So that was really appreciated. So thank you again, Marcus. Appreciate that.
No problem. It was, full transparency. It's written by AI. I threw a couple lyrics in there and let it do the work. So.
Got it. Well, we can add that to your nicknames then. Marcus quote AI Perkal. So thank you again for that, Mr. Perkal. So with that said, I did want to bring up the topic, and again, we've had short notice to put this together, but Marcus is somebody who I met via social media. So taking a step back, obviously, it's 2025, and social media definitely has a strong presence in a lot of people's lives. My buddy John's probably the exception, who doesn't have any social media, although I forced him to download TikTok so he can watch my stupid videos that I do send him from time to time. But for the most part, I mean, it's 2025. Most people, even if they don't have accounts, they at least have the apps downloaded so they can look at videos and reels, whatever else like that. But Marcus is somebody who I met via social media. So I think we mentioned it the last time Marcus was on. We're both in the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast Facebook group, which is a Facebook group which is basically put on by wrestlers Matt Cardona, Brian Myers, and Mark Sterling. It's a Facebook group of like-minded individuals who are wrestling fans, wrestling action figure fans, and stuff like that. It's probably, what do you think, about 2,000-3,000 people in that group in total?
Yeah, at this point, that's probably a pretty good guess. It's probably if I had to guess, I would say it's probably 2,500. So probably right there.
And it's a pretty solid group, I'd say, in terms of like the the neighborhood aspect of it. Like, people are nice, people help each other out, and things like that. And I'll say, like, my first interaction that I remember with Marcus, right? I mean, there's obviously some things where people like things or make comments, or whatever. Was coincidentally, it was right around WrestleMania Philly about a year ago, where I think Marcus had posted in the group, "Hey guys, does anybody need certain things?" So, as mentioned, like at WrestleMania week, there's WrestleCon, there's all sorts of things, and he had a number of things that were autographed that I wanted that I couldn't get to. So I was like, I think he had an autographed Maven Bendy plastic and a few other different things that he had. I was like, that sounds great. I could use it. I don't have those. So we agreed on the price. We met up at WrestleCon probably for about 25 seconds, give or take. He handed it off to me. I either Venmoed him or paid him cash for it. I do remember, I think I had said, hey, I'd be the guy standing at a certain spot wearing a certain hat. And I think I messed up the hat that I was wearing. Like, I think I said I was wearing either a New Jersey Devils Pride hat or a Cubs hat. I was wearing the other hat that I wasn't, that I didn't describe at the time. So that's my first memory.
It's funny when you just mentioned this to me earlier. I was like, I actually totally didn't remember this whole interaction. Now you say that was like the first thing I said to you. I was like, oh, I thought you were wearing a Devils hat, and you were like, oh, am I not?
Which again, I think is funny too, because this goes into my preamble story about Ron Hassey, right? Like, how the fact that it happened 35 years ago, and for me, it made such a great memory, and it's something that I remembered. But at the same time, like, my buddy, who I'm not going to name, who I texted about, I had like zero recollection about it. So it's just funny to me how, like, memories happen. Like, certain things stick with people, and certain things mean absolutely nothing. It's like when you're at work or in life or whatever, and you think something's the biggest deal in the world, and you're like, this is going to be awful. And like the next day, like nobody has any memory of it, but it still kind of eats you up inside. So it's just a very weird thing how memories work, you know?
Yeah, definitely had my fair share of. I did something I thought was stupid, and it eats away at me forever. And I don't want to ask this other person like, do you remember this? Because if they don't, I don't need to remind them. I just need to decide that they do forever. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And then even like years later, you're like, oh, that was the most embarrassing day ever. And like nobody has any recollection of it because they've all moved on to something else. But that's how life
exactly.
goes. Okay, so we met briefly at that time. We made the exchange. And then for me, my next memory of it, I think, was like I was intrigued because then, as we talked about in a previous podcast about whatnot and card collecting, you are a card breaker. So you go on whatnot, you host your card streams, and you break, you sell, stuff like that. And for me, it was a case of like I was like, oh, this seems pretty interesting. I think I listened to or I joined a few of your breaks. I was learning about it. But what kind of jumped out at me the most was, and I don't know if I mentioned this before or not on the podcast, but like as I was new to like the wrestling card collection system and like breaks and stuff like that, like you made yourself very, very available and you were answering questions and you were going back and forth with me, like helping to educate me on things. Like I would buy a box or two and I was like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. And you're like, okay, here's what you should see. You should see 2 autographs. You should see 12 numbered cards and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And
You
again,
were like, there's no numbered cards there. I was like, that's actually not possible. That's yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And this for me was one of my first signs, I think, that I needed reading glasses because, again, my eyesight's not great. My reading sight's even worse at this point. And it was funny because, like, I think I found a pair of reading glasses in the house. Might have been my father-in-law's when he had left them over years ago or something like that. And I was like, oh, yeah, there's some numbers. And you're like, see, I told you they were there, or whatever. But like you helped me in terms of understanding this because, again, this is my first, experience card collecting in like 30 years, right? And as we mentioned previously, card collecting in 1990 is very different than card collecting in 2024, 2025. So again, the fact that you were there and you were supportive and you were helpful, for me, I really appreciate that. And for me, like I have the general mindset of I will help out anybody who needs help. And it seems like at least, in this experience with me, like you went above and beyond to help me out there, which was great.
Yeah. I mean, first off, like you're welcome. I'm glad I was able to help you. And that's part of, I mean, as you said, right, we met in a Facebook group. The group we met in happens to, have a community and a family feel to it. And For me, that's part of, I mean, sports collecting, wrestling collecting autographs, that's been a massive part of my life for probably at this point 30-ish years. But the thing is that part of what I've always loved about it is that it is community built and it is, kind of you become a family with people. I mean, well, we could talk later on, more about this concept of the fact that you and I met in a Facebook group and then met in real life, and now, I probably text you top 5 more than anyone else. But also in that top 5, is going to be my buddy Lucas Cacuccio, who and I called him a buddy, just for you because that's your go-to word.
He's better than a friend, obviously.
But we met on it was a forum about sports collecting, and I was standing in line at a signing after posting an item I was getting done. He came up to me, was like, oh, hey, were you that guy on this forum? Struck up conversation then, and I mean now he's undeniably one of my best friends. There's other stories like that. I was involved in a forum for the New Jersey Nets, and it's just funny though because yeah, it is about helping people, and it kind of reminds me. My mom just brought this up. I hadn't really thought about this in a long time, but my 4-year-old right now, when you're putting her to bed, she asks you to tell her stories, and she wants like real stories about you when you were little. And my mom just like always gets flustered and just like has trying to think of these great stories. So my mom was telling me a story about me when I was little, and I was like, I want to say I was in like the 5th grade, maybe 6th grade. We were going to a New Jersey Nets game. They're predicting a blizzard. And so there was, on top of the fact it was a New Jersey Nets game and they had no fans at the time. The blizzard like really impacted the crowd. Like we were driving, we're like, this is not smart, but we're committed. Let's do it. So like we're in the arena. They literally announced like if everybody could move down, it would be greatly appreciated. So I like ran down. I was like sitting second row, saw this dude sitting on the floor, like talking to all the players. And I started talking to him. And then at the end, I was like, can you help me get a player's jersey? And he was like, I work for the team. I can't do that, but I can put you in the right spot so you can get that yourself. So he put me in the right spot. I waited for the post-game interviews. Asked Scott Williams. It was the Milwaukee Bucks because it wasn't even the Nets side. Asked
Yeah.
Scott Williams for his jersey. He was like, "I'm really sorry. We're on a extended road trip. I only have 2. I can't give it to you." And I was like, "All right, whatever." And this guy who said he would help me out felt so bad. He was like, "Do me a favor. Call me after the road trip. Here's my number and here's
Right.
my pager. Call me after the road trips. That dates it." And he's like, I'll get a jersey sent out to you."
Awesome.
So I called this dude every other day for 8 months.
Wow.
And one day he calls me back. He was like, "All right, I'm in the city for the NBA draft. I'm with Tim Thomas. Come meet us at this steakhouse and I will give you game worn sneakers." And I like told my mom, I was like, "We got to go to New York City, like whatever else." And this guy kept his word. He gave me 2 pairs of game worn sneakers. And I was, like I said, in like 6th grade, I think. And I kept in touch with this guy. And every single time the Bucks came to town, and then he moved teams to his name's Jackie Miles. If he's listening to this, it'd be incredible. We talk every now and then. It's been a while.
Nice.
But then he moved on to the Wizards, and whenever they came to town,
yeah,
we would, talk to each other after the game. We would meet up, and it was all he helped me out this one time, and I was so grateful. And it's part of the reason that I have these autographs behind me. I have autographs everywhere. It's like such a big part of my life because people help you out in this community, and
right.
That's where I feel like I still need to pay that forward. Like this guy literally changed how I looked at sports and athletes. So,
which is amazing.
Long story short,
yeah,
I'm paying it forward still.
Which is amazing. I mean, I'll say, I mean, for me, both personally and professionally, I have that mindset. So personally, for friends, I'll basically do anything. I'll help out wherever I can. But even professionally, like for me, like the story I think I've told in the past is like, I remember years ago when I first started out of college and like, I couldn't get a mentor. I got taken advantage of. I couldn't get anywhere. Nobody would help me out or train me. So I know how bad that felt. Now that I'm 26 years into my career, like anybody who needs help or wants anything, like I will help them out. Like I want work to be a positive environment. I want to help them out. I want people to not experience what I experienced before. So for me, again, personally and professionally, I'm here to help people out. And it seems like, you've got the same mindset also, which is just amazing, which is great to hear. Tim Thomas, the funny story in that was, so I went to Rutgers. I was at Rutgers from 95 to 99. And I remember, I think Tim Thomas went to Villanova, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I do. I remember it was either my freshman or sophomore year. I don't remember we might have gone to a college basketball game. I didn't go to a lot of college sports games at Rutgers because they were never very good. But I remember at one point there was a whole mass of people chanting, "We want Tim." So I think it was right before Tim Thomas had made his decision of where he was going to go. I mean, I think Thomas ended up going to the draft after his first year at Villanova anyway. He did 1 year and that was it, probably.
That I'm not sure of.
Okay.
He could have.
That's some more obscure Jeff Seltzer knowledge that may or may not be true.
But the thing, it all makes sense because he's from Patterson, so he's a Jersey guy.
Yeah.
Now, it would make sense why Rutgers fans felt, like you could get a guy from Jersey. That makes sense.
Well, yeah, and in 96, we weren't very good. We were part of the Big East at the time. We had nothing, and we were just hopeful we can get somebody local. And, well, it didn't happen. I went to a bunch of games. I don't think we really won any of them. I think we might have beaten a team called Elon College, which I haven't heard of or seen since. But it was.
I think that they're in North Carolina.
Oh, your neck of the woods. That's good. I don't know. The Carolinas are all the same to me, I guess, at this point. Yeah. So again, like I think the point being made there was, online communities. If you could find good ones, you definitely can find some great people. People are helpful. Again, the group that we've met in, there's a lot of trading. There's a lot of helping people out. There's a lot of, hey, I'm going to a convention. You need something signed. I can get it signed for you. All sorts of different things, which is super helpful, especially, the Facebook group covers like all over the country. So sometimes people are somewhere else. You can get things other people can't get to and stuff like that. So again, I've met a bunch of people through the group. Zach Linder, who's also a guest in the show a while back. Some really cool people, your buddy Lucas, things like that, which is nice. What I did want to bring up though, interestingly enough, was obviously when you meet somebody in one, let's say almost like a blind date kind of a setting or whatever, there are certain things you never learn about a person, right? So like I have friends that I grew up with and I have friends that I have now who like I see all the time and like I know them pretty well. Then I would say like Marcus, I've known you for what I guess almost a year at this point. We text all the time and I know you very well in certain situations, but there are probably a lot of things about you that I just don't know, right? Because you don't necessarily have those natural interactions. I've met you in person twice now, right? So Mania for about 20 seconds last year, and then at the GCW show at American Dream back
Which
in
was for
November.
about 3 minutes, really. If
Yeah,
you, yeah,
absolutely. So I've spent more time with you, I think, online via the podcast, and with your mom on the podcast.
I was gonna mention, yeah, you could have asked her for all the stories if you wanted to.
That's right. Shout out to Jerry Perkal as always. So with that said, I thought it'd be fun to kind of get a sense of like learning a little bit more about who is Marcus Perkal. So I did what any sane, rational person would do, and I went to Google and I said, "Hey, what are 10 questions to get to know someone?" So this is almost like I don't want to say speed dating, but this is kind of a deal where I'll kind of ask you some questions. Obviously, you could say pass if you're not comfortable or you don't have an answer or whatever, right? Like little things like I know, about your wrestling interests. I know about your sports cards interests, stuff like that. But, some questions I don't know the answer to. So, for example, what is your favorite food?
Jeez. That's like not where I thought this was gonna go at all.
No, I mean,
Um,
I can tell. I mean, I know a lot of things about you, but like the basics, right? Things that like if you and I went, we've never had lunch together, right? So I wouldn't know what you like. We wouldn't know where we would go together. So if Marcus and Jeff Seltzer were to go out for lunch one day, what kind of food would Marcus like?
I would say probably spicy tuna of any sort, whether it's, in a bowl or like a sushi roll or anything like that.
Okay.
Although ironically, I cannot stand tuna fish. The smell, the sound of people eating it, everything. Like it, my wife doesn't eat it when I'm home, because I like can smell it from upstairs, and I despise it.
So do you like is there a and again, I'm not really a sushi expert. I went to Japan and I had Shake Shack all week, so I'm not really the sushi expert here. But that's another story altogether. But are there places you like to go to it? Like, do you like grocery store sushi? Do you like conveyor belt sushi, hibachi sushi? Like, what jumps out at you? What do you like the
I
most?
mean, I guess a little background. I live in South Carolina, as you said earlier, like in the Carolinas, but
Yep.
I'm from New Jersey. Was born and raised there. Lived in New York City for 8 years before moving down here. Sushi up north is much better than it is here. But just like just going at like a sushi spot, I would always just like get spicy tuna rolls. I'll get a tuna roll, but spicy tuna more. But yeah, I mean, down here, like yeah, I will. I'll get sushi at the grocery store. I'll go to restaurants like Poke Bowl also. Um, definitely, I would say that's like my number one. And if I had to pick a number two, I would say just like a good steak. Like,
Nice.
and when I say good, I don't mean like an expensive steak. I just mean a steak cooked properly, which is medium rare.
Do you have any steak restaurants that you go to? Like for me, and I think I've said this before, like I'm a big chain snob as we've gone back and forth in text about. And for
Yeah.
me, like Outback is kind of like one of my happy places. Like, is Outback not good enough for you? Do you need Ruth's Chris? Kind of like what jumps out at you?
Well, first off, that's ironic because Ruth Chris is actually where I met Jackie Miles to go pick up those sneakers, in New York City.
Perfect.
But no, honestly I have nothing against Outback. I will say the Outback near us. My wife was hesitant to go. I convinced her to go one time. I was like, "Oh, we could watch." She went to University of Georgia. I was like, "We could watch a Georgia Bulldogs game." And we got there and there were police in the parking lot,
Oh
and they were
no.
like, there was a kitchen dispute. They've closed and they never reopened. I don't know what happened. And that's a true story. But no, I mean, if I had to say my favorite like chain steakhouse, I would say it's probably Morton's.
Okay.
That being said, there's a restaurant it's like an institution in South Carolina called Halls. They are top notch. It's the best, like the best steak I've ever had. But no, I would go to Outback happily, get a blooming onion and a steak. They have a steak and you get a potato. Like that's what I'd be looking for.
Nice. Cool. So
Yeah.
we got sushi and steaks. Good combination there. Um, do you watch movies? And if so, what is your favorite genre and or movie?
I I figured this was that you were going to throw movies in here since I know you're like a huge movie person.
Yes.
I don't really watch movies. I mean,
Okay.
I love stupid comedies. That's like what I watch most when I do watch movies. I used to be much more into movies. Now at this point with two little kids, I don't have time to really watch too much TV. And what I do, I unfortunately, for better or worse, really do give to wrestling. So like I don't watch a ton of movies.
That's fair. So then my follow-up question was going to be, what about TV shows? But I assume based on your answer, it's mostly wrestling driven, wrestling heavy is kind of what you
I
focus
mean,
on.
if the TV show that I watch most, me and my wife Carrie will sit down and watch whenever we can, is The Challenge on MTV.
Okay.
Um,
So real quick, shout out to my buddy Rich, who is a producer on MTV. He programs MTV. So
oh,
shout out to Rich if he's listening right now.
nice. Yeah, shout out to Rich. Rich, if you could ever get any screeners for us, let us know. But yeah, I love reality television. That's like I feel like it kind of goes with wrestling. It's like mindless and it's not. I mean, at this point, there's definitely a lot of scripted, but it kind of when it first came out, like I watched the first 40 something seasons of Survivor religiously, never missed an episode until 3 seasons ago. It was just like it was something that was different. I feel like it kind of was like a genre of TV that was born in my lifetime, which was a little more unique. But otherwise, yeah, like I don't really watch a whole lot of television. I'm trying to think. I know. Oh, my wife and I are currently in the middle of. We're behind, but the final season of Righteous Gemstones,
Yep, just finished
um,
that this week. Also
which
myself.
actually is all filmed like right around my house.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of like the things they say, there was like an episode in like it was like in season 2 where they were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna open up a church in the vacant Sears," and I went to like the pretty vacant mall right near us, and there's a Gemstone Academy sign up over the former Sears, and that just they film in the mall.
Nice.
So yeah, I would say that's probably the only show that I really am keeping up with, and like I said, we're behind anyway.
Nice. Great show. I would say this season was good. I don't think it was the best season, but I still thought it was a solid season. Pretty funny to begin with. Speaking of HBO and HBO Max, have you seen The Rehearsal?
No, I haven't. I saw you posted something about it today.
So insane.
A couple people have told me about it, and I did watch Nathan for You.
Yes.
So I feel like it's something that I will once we finish Righteous Gemstones, that might be the next thing I jump into.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And for those of you that are listening or watching that don't watch The Rehearsal or don't know what it is, so I was watching part of an episode, and Beth asked me, she goes, "What is this show?" And I can't in words describe what The Rehearsal is about. Like it's such a bizarre show. Like Nathan Fielder, the host, the star, the writer, or whatever else like that. He is such a bizarre but like a brilliant genius of like what he does that I couldn't even begin to try to describe like what the show's about. I mean, largely he creates like dress rehearsals for like real situations is probably the most simple way of putting it. Like even things like the most basic of things, like he kind of scenario plans. It's almost like me, but like times 55,000, I would say. And the fact that in my head, I scenario plan every single situation that can happen. My anxiety kind of drives me to places where I have to kind of say, okay, if X happens to do Y, Z happens to do whatever else like that. Like he doesn't just think about them. Like he actually acts them out. He creates like huge sets to kind of like make it feel real. It's very bizarre. Like I can't describe beyond that. But if you haven't checked out The Rehearsal, there's just 2 seasons of it. First season was okay. The second season, they're like 3 or 4 episodes into now, is just completely just bonkers. But it's worth just starting a season on episode 1 and going through it. You can skip the first season if you want, do the second season. It's just been so fantastic, I guess is the way to put it. I don't know.
Did you watch Nathan for You, his other show?
I did. I found Nathan for You probably years too late. I think it was on TikTok. I saw there was a clip. Did you watch all the seasons or just part of it?
Yeah, no, I watched every. That was well before I had kids. I had a lot more free time then.
So there was one scene or one episode that I think a clip was on TikTok where it starts off with Nathan talking about he's going to handcuff himself in front of a bunch of kids. And I'm not going to finish where this situation goes, but it gets really, really bizarre and really dark in a nice way, whatever. It ends well. So nobody should worry about anything, whatever. But like, as I was watching it, I was like, who is this guy? And like, what is this show?
So I think if we could provide a little context to the show to make what you just said sound a little less messed up.
Go for it.
So basically what it was is the whole show was about like getting clout, whether it was for him or other people. So like in the intro, he was like, I graduated from a business school with like really good grades, and they show like it's like a report card, and he's got like B's, C's, and D's. And it would just come up with like these marketing campaigns for stores. So like one was like a froyo place, and he was like, you know what would make people come here? If you had poop flavored ice cream. And they were like, yeah, okay, whatever else. And he like hung up signs that we have poop flavored ice cream, and they got like massive lines. Or another one was he told this liquor store they should sell liquor to kids who are underage, and then immediately after they buy it, he gives them a receipt that says like, you can come pick this bottle up when you turn 21. So
Right.
they would own it, but they wouldn't have it in their possession. So there was one season where it was more like he was doing, it was like about him, I believe, if I remember correctly, not like promoting
A show or store. Yeah.
like places. So he was like, he wanted to make sure that his like he was trying to become like a escape artist, and to get interest, he was that if he failed at his escape, that he would expose himself to a bunch of children. Granted, it's not a real show.
Right.
So he like handcuffed himself and he had to like pretend that he didn't care. So the line he dropped was like, something might happen here today. And if it does, so what? And it was just like a very vague, like, I don't care what happens.
Yep.
But that's the context of that. And then he had to like escape. Otherwise his pants were going to get pulled down.
And he'd be a registered sex offender, I think is what it was.
Exactly.
Like
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So thanks for the background and describing it there. It's been a while since I watched it, but that definitely helped to add some context. So I'm sure people who didn't, hang up yet.
I want to
like,
say
yeah,
it
that
was a
makes sense
Comedy
then.
Central, maybe.
I think
That
it
might
was.
not be
It's on Max now. It's also on Paramount Plus. Although in one of the episodes of the rehearsal this season, he has a whole thing about how Paramount Plus removed one of the episodes because of some content in it, which is weird. But the entire run of it is on HBO Max, which is great. There's another one I just came to mind also, which I thought was really, really great. So as most people know, I'm a huge haunted house guy, Halloween Horror Nights, stuff like that. There was one where I think he ran a haunted house, but he made it so scary or so bizarre or so out there that at one point during the house, people are walking through it. He makes it look like paramedics pull people aside because they were truly poisoned by something, by some disease or whatever. So it turned from like a stupid, like, hey, we're walking through a haunted house. These people actually thought they were going to die. And it's just so bizarre, but it's just so Nathan. So definitely worth checking out, Nathan For You on HBO Max and Paramount Plus. But definitely The Rehearsal season 2 is just so bizarre. And it's very smart too in the rehearsal, that is, in like things that it like focuses on. So this season's focusing on, like, weirdly enough, like airline safety, which, with my preamble from earlier today, is very much like, in the news now. So it's definitely worth checking out. And I'm curious, if any learnings come from it, but again, definitely worth checking out. One more question for you on this list, which I think tells a lot about people. What is your favorite music genre? So I know from our conversations a little bit about it, but if you could tell me more about, like, hey, if Marcus has a playlist, like, what do you listen to?
Honestly, it's all over the map. I love rap, but nothing that's come out in the last, I don't know, I would say probably like 7 or 8 years is like stuff that I would say would be on a playlist that I'd be making. Like I'm a big Jay-Z fan. All the Blueprint albums. Um, and but now I'd say I'm a much more pop. Love, like Beyonce, Justin Timberlake, Fits in the Tantrums, Ed Sheeran, those types of names. Primarily what I honestly listen to is, so I need to start doing it more again, but I had been very into Peloton in 2020 to probably like 2022.
I think
Um,
everybody was at that point. Like, I could say, like, from my work with all the Teams meetings back in 2020,
Yeah.
like, again, I have a treadmill behind me here, but like everybody and their mom would have a Peloton in their background, which would start stories. People talk about it. So you were definitely on trend at that point versus me. I still have my old school exercise bike and treadmill back
I,
there.
I jump back and forth. Like I try to get back into it, and I will, and then I'll like fall off again. But there's a feature on there where you can connect your Spotify, and most people use Spotify. Jeff, I know that you use Apple Music, but most people use Spotify.
No judgments. It's okay.
So you can connect your Spotify, and any song that's on in any ride you do, if you favorite it, it puts it on a playlist. So I have this playlist that has all these songs that I've said I've liked. I like some of them more than I like others, but that's honestly usually just a playlist I throw on. Like if I'm in the car and I'm not with my kids, that's just my go-to at this point. It's pretty extensive and it's all over the place, which I also like. If I listen to it in order, I can kind of tell like what phase I was in my riding. Was I doing hip hop rides? Was I doing pop rides? But if I was listening to it on shuffle, it's like I just pulled it up. I want to say it's like 250, 300, over 300 songs.
Okay.
It's actually wow. It's 502 songs.
Wow.
So it's more than 24 hours of music. So I can
Nice.
listen to it usually not hearing the same song repeatedly, but it's a lot of the artists I said and just a lot of like pop from the 90s, 2000s. It's 32 hours and 37 minutes worth of music.
Nice, nice. So you could probably drive down to New Orleans for WrestleMania next year and back with that one playlist playing. So I think you're all set. Do you find, and again, I know you're a father, obviously, two young kids. I have two daughters. They were young at one point, now not so much. Do you have two sets of playlists, like one that's like kid safe versus, the Marcus playlist, or do you not really, focus on that or do that?
I definitely do. I actually have. I made my daughters their own Spotify account for
Nice.
multiple reasons. First off, so then that way, if we used to like, if they would go to sleep with like music on, and then I would go back downstairs, I'd be able to have that's connected to the Alexa in their rooms, not to the ones in my office or on my phone.
Yep.
But it also, 2 years ago, I was very disappointed. At the end of the year, Spotify puts out like a Spotify Wrapped where they
Yep.
tell you what you listened to, who your favorite artists were. And I do like Taylor Swift, but she is by no means in my top 5, let alone
Sure.
my number 1. And my number 1 was Taylor Swift, and all of my top songs were Taylor Swift. And I thought that it was skewing my data, so I got them their own accounts. Then this way, we can look and enjoy, what their top songs are, and then I can still have my uninterrupted pure data.
So it's funny you say that, because so Beth and I, obviously we share an Apple Music account because we're from a family account, but like our accounts are all set up from like years ago. So like Robin and Allison have their own Apple Music set up, but for years Beth and I have just shared one just because it's just easier and just the way that it's set up. And I've experienced exactly what you just talked about with your kids. So Apple Music, again, not Spotify, but Apple Music, they have something every month. They put out a replay, so it'll basically say top artists, top songs, whatever else like that. The last 3 months, Taylor Swift is in my number 1 artist. Now, I like Taylor. I listen to some, but I think she's listening to probably 85% Taylor versus for me, like I probably pepper in lots of different artists. So that's what's happening there. I'm sure this is probably something that's happening to a lot of people everywhere. My daughter, Robin, she's a huge Swiftie, and she definitely has Taylor as her number 1 artist. And I by default have it because my wife went with Robin to go see Taylor Swift back in Toronto in November. So she's reliving the memories. So I get it. I would love to be able to see my data at this point, but I guess being married 20 plus years, we just share everything, including our data and our musical interests. So that's where we sit right now. So definitely something in common there. That's all the questions that I had for you for today. I did want to ask you briefly before we call it a day. So
wait, can I ask you?
Of course.
First off, what's your favorite food?
My favorite food, pretty much anything. Let's say not anything Mexican in general. So like for me, my go-to would be like go to an On the Border, go to Jose Tejas, go to Uncle Julio's, get my chips and salsa, get steak fajitas, get crispy ground beef tacos, something like that. Like that's generally my go-to, or similar to what you said before, like steak. Steak is another big one for me as well. But like my 2 go-tos are probably steak and Mexican.
If you go to On the Border, are you getting like tableside guac?
Very oftentimes, yeah.
Okay.
Even if I go by myself, like I'll be like that guy sitting there, and I'll get. I feel silly as they put the show on for me. Like I almost wish sometimes they would just make the guac in the back, but I do feel special. They're making it in front of me that it's fresh-ish.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a big tableside guac guy.
Okay, and then favorite musical artist.
Favorite musical artist. So I'm very diverse. So I worked at a Sam Goody music store when I was in college. Those things don't exist anymore. But for those out there that remember or want to know what Sam Goody is, basically it was a CD store. So we sold CDs, we sold VHS tapes, we sold cassette tapes, everything. I worked there for a little over a year. What I would say from musical perspective, like looking at or thinking about my playlist right now, like I'm all over the place. So like literally today, I got tickets to go see Benson Boone in September. largely because my daughter Allison is a huge fan, and she thinks that he's the one for her. Which at 15, we all think that at some point. So I got tickets to see Benson. So okay, here's probably a good way to kind of describe my musical interests. So over the next 6 months, I'm going to see Halsey in June, Weird Al Yankovic in July, Linkin Park and the Jonas Brothers separate shows in August, Benson Boone in September, and then Sabrina Carpenter in October. Definitely all over the place. I would like a little more hip hop if possible, but hip hop artists don't tend to tour as much around here as they once did, or it's tougher to get to, I guess, whatever. But for me, rock, rap, pretty much anything but country, I would say, is what I generally lean into.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I feel like in South Carolina where I am, we definitely don't get a lot of musicians coming through.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think my diversity, it really says that the two best concerts that I've ever been to, one was Jay-Z and one was Billy Joel. They were both at Madison Square Garden.
Nice.
So that's kind of like the full spectrum that I would say I had there.
Different ends, yeah. For me, I would say, so my favorite concerts I ever went to. So in 2001, back then, K-Rock 92.3 radio in New York used to have what they called the DFP, the Dysfunctional Family Picnic. It was like a full day festival where they had like 9 or 10 bands. I went with a friend of mine, and it was Disturbed, Linkin Park, Stone Temple Pilots, Blink-182, Jane's Addiction. Who else? Papa Roach. It was just like all of the biggest like rock bands at the time. Like that was one of my favorite shows. Additionally, I've seen Green Day a bunch of times. I used to be a huge Nickelback fan. There's a whole documentary on Netflix about them, which is really funny, called Everybody Hates Nickelback. It's just very funny. They're kind of tongue-in-cheek about how, everybody hates them, but they've been popular and they're making money over the years. So it's one of those things where you love them, you hate them, but I mean, their songs are so catchy. There's a lot of shows that I've gone to, but living in New Jersey, New York, there's so many opportunities.
It's so easy.
I mean, I'm close to New York. I'm close to Philly. I can do all this kind of stuff, which is great.
For granted, for sure. But yeah, an interesting fact though. So
yes,
best Jay-Z concert I went to was a 9/11 benefit.
Nice.
It was 9/11 2009.
Okay.
And it was for Fuse Network, which no longer exists. But he basically brought out like anyone who was anyone in rap. But the artist he brought out that was not a rapper was John Mayer.
Oh wow.
And John Mayer played guitar for like a medley of a couple songs. And then I was at a Billy Joel concert at the Garden, and Billy Joel brought out John Mayer to play guitar. So I've seen John Mayer as a featured guest for Jay-Z and Billy Joel. And yeah, I mean, I guess that also shows how broad his spectrum is there. He's, incredibly talented.
That's a huge crossover, right? Like how many other people have played with both Billy Joel and Jay-Z? Like it doesn't happen.
I'm gonna say that there's probably like the only other person who maybe could have done it would have been like Sting. I feel like it was probably the only option.
The musician, not the wrestler.
Yes. Correct. Yeah.
Very good. Awesome. Before we jump off, I did want to bring up the fact that I am honored to be part of Marcus's first WNBA fantasy league. Now, I believe this is the first time you've run this before. And I've never done WNBA fantasy either. But as I mentioned before, I am a feminist. I do everything I can to support women and women's sports. So if I'm going to be a degenerate gambler and I gamble on men's sports, I would want to be an equal opportunity degenerate gambler and definitely gamble on female sports as well, too. So really excited. I know all of about 7 or 8 players in the WNBA. But this is where, drafting fantasy sports now versus in the year 1999 is much easier because it's all right in front of you. You can even set the auto draft and look at you good enough team probably,
Yeah. I was talking with my brother a couple months ago, and he had said that he thought that next year. So I went to University of Connecticut. I'm a big college basketball fan, as is my brother. And he had mentioned that next year he thought that we should run a women's college basketball bracket. First off, because the sport is growing, and obviously going to UConn, who has 12 women's championships, he knew I would have interest, and also he has a daughter. I have 2 daughters. Trying to get the girls into sports, what have you. And he made that comment. It obviously hit a nerve, and I texted him about a month ago and was like, "Hey, what do you think about doing a WNBA fantasy league?" He was like, "I'm in. I'm not sure why, but I'm in." So yeah, it's I was able to get 10 people interested, which I found I thought that was a pretty good number. But yeah, so it's my brother, me, Jeff, as we mentioned earlier, Daniel Ireland,
Yes.
and then six of my friends from UConn. So all of our knowledge of women's basketball is all the same. We only know UConn players, and um, and Caitlin Clark. That's I think
Of
all we
course.
know. So yeah, I mean, I think that you and Daniel and my brother have a huge leg up. Without a UConn bias, if you guys draft any good player who didn't go to UConn isn't Caitlin Clark, you guys have a pretty big advantage. So we'll see how it goes.
We'll see what happens. I've done fantasy NASCAR. I've done lots of random fantasies, whatever. I've generally found that, like, as a data dork, the first week or two is the toughest, but then we start looking at trends. At the end of the day, data is data. So we'll see how it goes. Obviously, with that said, I'll probably finish in like 10th place. So we'll see how it ends up. It'll be fun regardless. Looking forward to it. And any additional degenerate gambling is always something good for me. So looking forward to that.
Agreed. I haven't done fantasy sports in years.
Yeah.
Probably about a decade. So I'm
Okay.
excited to get back into it with a ridiculous, I shouldn't call it ridiculous, but like a very different
Yes.
take, something that hopefully will be fun and not, uber competitive.
Yeah, we'll learn to get. I mean, although the few things I know about you is you are uber competitive, so I think somehow you'll probably push as hard and make it as competitive as possible. But if
I
nothing
will.
else, it'll be a good time. It'll be something else to kind of like rant about or vent about or whatever. So it'll be fun.
I was really close. I was telling this to my buddy, one of the other guys in the league. I was telling him yesterday that when I was setting up the league,
Yeah.
on the bottom there was an option like, "Is this a keeper league?" And I
Oh
was
no.
so close to just say yes and be like, "We're all committed to this for years." But I decided that with it being the first foray into it,
Yes.
if anything, we would want to make a keeper league starting in year 2, and we could get all the jitters out and figure out who's actually good and who's not, and then go from there.
Yeah. Plus, once Jerry joins in year 2, I think that's when it really begins. So we'll see what happens. So with that said, Marcus, we are getting out of time here. Anything that you wanted to support or call out or sponsor or anything you want to kind of whatever, or you ready to just punt to the end?
I mean, the only thing I will just say is, first off, again, thank you for having me. If anyone is interested in learning more about wrestling trading cards, please find me on Facebook. Although it says Marcus Perkal here, you're looking for Marcus Brandon on Facebook. And if you have Whatnot, please give me a follow at Marcus Brandon. That's where I do all my breaks. If you have any questions about wrestling cards in general, if I could help you with other cards, like I'm again, as Jeff said, I'm more than happy to just have conversations and talk to people. But if you're looking to get into it, I will guide you through it and help you, hopefully get some great cards to start off your collection.
Yeah, and he actually absolutely means it, as I've mentioned before. So if anybody doesn't remember what Marcus had said, definitely just reach out to me. I can put you in contact with Marcus, and he'll definitely help you out with whatever you need. So, Marcus, thanks again for joining us. Always really appreciate it. Before calling it a day, I did want to reiterate, which I talked about last week. On Sunday, May 25th, Everybody Has a Story with Jeff Seltzer will be a sponsor of Shadow Wrestling at the Mecca in Ridgefield Park, New Jersey. I will be sponsoring a match between Janai Kai, Notorious Mimi, and Diamond Viraga. Should be an awesome three-way match. 3 ladies that I think are incredible. Janai Kai I've seen multiple times in GCW. Notorious Mimi was on an Apple TV Plus television series. And I've never seen Diamond before, but I'm really excited for that. I'll be the official sponsor of their match. Additionally, I'll be doing commentary over their match as well, which should be a lot of fun. So definitely check that out. Tickets are still available. You can find them on Instagram at Watch Shadow Live. With that said, you can find the show on Instagram, as you guys know, at Everybody Has a Story Pod. My personal Instagram is at Seltzer77. You can reach out to the show directly at everybodyhasastorypod@gmail.com. For all things Jeff Seltzer, as always, go check out jeffseltzer.com. Tell everybody that the show is available on all podcast platforms. If you'd like to be a guest of the show, definitely reach out. Additionally, if you want to write a review, follow, comment, all the good stuff, please do that on all of the platforms. Have an amazing, amazing week, and I'm sure I'll have a lot of great stories to share next week. Thanks again, Marcus. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer.